Hey, this is Rick from FreefromWork.com, and I just wrote an article recently called Remote Working Best Practices. And I'd like to go over some of the things that I've learned over the last 8 years and other things I've learned from some research from some top companies around the world. So, here we go. Personal appearance may not seem like a big deal to you, and it might not be. But so many of us roll out of bed in the morning in our pajamas or shorts and t-shirt, go in the study and start working. I found several times where I haven't showered and shaved till later in the day or even a day later. There's some evidence that points to you being more effective and more efficient, maybe thinking even more clearly when you've gotten cleaned up. Now, that may be debatable, but I'll tell you this. It's not so much when I work, but when I go on a long drive, if I want to stay awake and be more alert and more sharp, I've got to shower and clean up because it just makes me more alive, more alert, and I can tell a major difference. So, again, may be debatable, but there's some evidence in other parts of our lives also. Another thing is, if you're working remotely, you may have an office in town. And there's been several times when there's been a video conference call and I wasn't ready for the conference call because my hair was all messed up or I hadn't shaven. And a couple times where a meeting was called up at the last minute. And then I was rushing to get in the shower, cleaned up, and get to that meeting. So it's always good to be ready to get on a video conference call or hit the road to get to another meeting. So just always be prepared, be ready, and you'll feel better. And I think that you'll be more effective too. Personal responsibility is one that we really need to pay attention to. There's some simple things like, when you're working remotely and you've got a lot of flexibility, sometimes you don't talk as much and you don't communicate as well. And when you're struggling, you need to talk to somebody right away. You don't need to sit on it and for several days and not be effective in getting things done. Another thing, you need to have a bigger picture of your clients and your company and be self-directing. You can't wait for somebody to hand something to you, have it all marked up and tell you exactly what you need to do. As I'm shown here, talking about in this article here, I've got somebody who they've made several excuses where they didn't do something because they were waiting for me. Well, if you're waiting around and making excuses, working remotely may not be the right thing for you. Another thing about personal responsibility is it is your responsibility to make sure you take care of yourself, of your health, your eating, your exercise. You need to take time to get up and go for a walk, go run, go exercise. Take time to have lunch. And when you're working at home or remotely, family members will take advantage of you quite often. There's so many times when somebody's like, well, you're at home. Can you go do this for me? Can you run this errand? They don't realize that I'm more busy than a lot of times if I'm at the office. I have so many things going on, and it makes things much more difficult when they're asking me to run errands all the time. You might have to make some rules for family, friends, and neighbors so that you're not taken advantage of on a daily basis. Because you have a responsibility to your clients, your company, and yourself. All right, here's one that I really struggle with. There's been so many times when I haven't left the house. I get up, work. Next thing I know, it's all day has gone by, and I haven't left the house. I haven't even cleaned up. I'm still in my t-shirt and shorts. And I'm not socializing with my friends. And guess what? I'm on the road to becoming a hermit. Not truly. I have some kids and my wife. They won't let me do that. But you have to be careful here. You really have to socialize with people in different ways. One of the things that several business leaders have said is, that face-to-face time is really important. And we need to create a team atmosphere, and we've got to find time to get together. I had an example this week where one of the guys I was working with didn't want to get together, I could tell. And we have a big project due this week. But I really impressed on him that we need to just go hang out. Don't bring work. Don't bring plans. Let's just go talk about the project a little bit and just hang out together. And we spent about 2 to 3 hours having an early dinner and just had a great time together. We just spent that one-on-one time together and got to know each other more. And that pays off in the long run. Because when you're connected with somebody, you'll work better together, you'll do more for each other, and you've really got to do some of that. You may have thousands of miles apart with you and the people you work with. Well, in that case, maybe you want to get on a video conference call or Skype, and sometimes not even talk about a project, but at least see the person, talk to them, because how much communication is done that's nonverbal, and just writing and sending texts and emails to each other is not enough a lot of times. One of my favorite things to do is when a project is completed, take some time out. Go, have lunch together. Go, if you like racquetball, go do that. I mean, find some way to celebrate. And it's not always with food. Don't get into that habit. But find some time just to go hang out and celebrate an accomplishment, or getting a project in. You're wiped out. You need some downtime. You need to relax. If you thought that working remotely and working at home meant that you didn't have to manage anything anymore or be managed, boy, we have all been wrong in thinking that. Working remotely can sometimes take more to manage than if you're in the office. You really have to change your mindset when you're working remotely. I've remembered having so many arguments, conversations with people. They've always say, well, if you're not sitting in the chair and I don't see you working, how can I trust you're getting the job done? And they're stuck in this old-fashioned, I wouldn't say old-fashioned, but it's a style of work where you want everybody there. Whether you believe or not, you want to see people and interact more quickly. And there is some value to that, of course. But when you work remotely, you have to change your mindset. You have to switch from hours being worked to the product being completed. Are you getting your tasks done on time? Are you responsive when you answer texts, emails, phone calls? Are you getting your job done, and are you getting quality work done? You set down a goal and you look at the product being completed. If it took the person 4 hours, it doesn't matter. If it took them 10 hours, it doesn't matter, or 20 hours, as long as it was finished in the time frame that you expected. Communication. If you're working remotely, communication is more important than ever. You've got to become very reliable and responsive in your communication, and especially when you're writing emails, you have to be very specific. And some people even say you have to over-communicate. And one thing that, if you have a lot of people on your team, you need to communicate or teach everybody how to communicate across the board. There are so many things that get misunderstood, mistaken, and when you're not in that face-to-face communication. So be careful. This one, you really need to communicate more than you normally would at an office. The equipment, software, and security, we all know we need equipment, and I don't really need to go into that. I've addressed this on another one of my articles. What I really wanted to focus on here was the security part. I was recently visiting with the father at my daughter's soccer game, and we were talking about his job in cybersecurity, and we were talking about me setting up things to work online remotely from anywhere in the world. He brought up a really interesting thing about security first of all, but it was using a VPN. The VPN does two different things for you, and I don't know near enough about this yet, and this is something I'm going to be researching more. But the VPN, say for example, we go to soccer games out of town, and you're at restaurants or you're at a hotel and a Wi-Fi system or whatever system they're using. you're much more susceptible to hacking in those situations. And so a VPN can offer the security you need, plus it acts as your Wi-Fi. So for yourself, so you plug that VPN into the system there, like at the hotel, and then everyone there in your family accesses the VPN. And so there's security, and it basically acts as a hotspot. Another thing he brought up was, say you're in another country, and this other country doesn't allow you to gain access to certain sites. We know that happens all the time. There's people put limits, or governments put limits on some sites that can be accessed. Well, if you're somewhere else in the world and you need access, and say for instance I'm here in the United States, I may want to, or I can use that VPN to make it look like I am accessing the internet in Dallas, Texas, rather than in some other country, and then I gain access to all the sites that I always use. This is really important if you're running a business and you have to get access to those sites to answer messages, to respond to things, to keep your business going. So make sure that you're looking at this for security and for access if you travel a lot. The last thing I want to bring up here is company culture, and this is something I think a lot of us just write off, don't even think about. But if you want to be successful long term working remotely and you work with other team members, I mean, very rarely are you ever isolated. You've got to find ways to build a team, to feel connected. There's all kinds of ways to do that, but to think that you don't have to do it is a mistake. Now, there's unique situations all the time, so somebody might say, well, no, I don't have to. Well, yeah, you're right, you may not have to. But the majority of us do. And it's important to build those things. Like, for instance, most of my team members are in the state I'm in. Well, I make time to at least once a month to go visit with them, meet with them. We get together and do things. We have company meetings. We go have lunch together. We'll go golf together. We'll just, one of the guys will go camping, hiking in New Mexico or Colorado. So find ways to do some things. Like, here's another example. Some companies who have people all around the world will rent a cabin or a condo at a beach or a beach house. And for a week, they'll bring everybody in from all around the world to just hang out, get to know each other, and build that team relation, build that team, and the camaraderie that many of us are used to having. So even if it's only once a year, that will mean a lot for you as you work through the rest of the year. And then those video conference calls or phone calls, those just then reinforce what you've learned and the friendships you've made when you did get together. Well, I really didn't mean for this to go on this long here, but there are so many great best practices for working remotely, and I didn't even list all of them here. So to wrap this up, I just wanted to introduce you to some of these remote working best practices, and you can take time to read this on my website, read more about it, or you can do a search on the internet. There's all kinds of resources out there from different people's perspectives. Like I said, I've got about 8 years, and I sure have learned a lot by just mistakes of doing things the wrong way. This whole research and writing this article has pointed out several things in my life that I need to change. So I'm not here telling you how to do it because I've been great at it. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to see some of these remote working best practices. Take a look at it. Do some research, find out what works best for you, and I wish you the best of luck in your business. Have a great day.